something that we haven't done for a while as the SGA, so I wanted to bring it back this year just to be able to have this conversation and know exactly what our professors are up to, get to know them a little bit more, but particularly what it is that they've been working on, their research, and just some things that we're not able to talk about maybe in the classroom setting, or if you don't have certain professors in class, you don't get to hear about what it is that they're working on. So I'm excited and thankful to have Dr. Laing with us today. Dr. Laing, some of y'all know, is on sabbatical last semester and has been working on a lot of exciting things that we're going to be able to talk about today. So I'm excited to just spend some time with that, and we'll have time at the end for a Q&A. So any questions that y'all have about her work or what she's been doing, y'all will have time to be able to talk about that. But once again, thank y'all for coming out, and we'll go ahead and get started. So I'll introduce Dr. Laing. She's coming out. So. All right.
So generous.
Give me a second.
I don't upset Brandon.
And got it covered. All right. So first, one thing I want to start off each of these different sessions, particularly this one with the work that we'll be discussing, is the impact of our faith tradition on the work that we do. So I'm interested, Dr. Laing, to hear more about just how your the faith tradition that you grew up in and are currently a part of, and how that has particularly impacted your work in academia. So just speaking to that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Is that okay? Can everybody hear? Okay. Otherwise, I can yell too, as you know. Well, my faith tradition is Baptist. You probably heard me claim Southern Baptist, but really I grew up Romanian Baptist. So I'm a, kind of an interesting or weird kind of Baptist, Eastern European Baptist. And, it's not very different theologically speaking from Baptist, I think, worldwide. But there are, I think, some definite emphases in Romanian Baptist life that I have benefited from a lot, and for which I will be forever grateful. I was born into a Baptist family that had been Baptist for a few generations before me, and my grandparents on my mother's side for a couple of generations before her were not just Christian, not just Baptist, but ministers and involved in missions work, in evangelism, things like that. On my father's side, the Baptist heritage kind of started with his parents. My grandfather on my father's side was Orthodox, and he converted to being a Baptist when he was actually approached by a German-speaking missionary, I guess a chaplain, in the trenches of World War I, when my grandfather was 18, and on the front. And my grandmother was Greco-Catholic, and she converted. I don't even really know her story, actually, her conversion story, but she became a Baptist as well. And so when they met each other, they were Baptist, and they had a pile of Baptist children. and everybody, all my aunts and uncles, except maybe one who was kind of attracted to transcendentalism type of religion, were active in Christian ministry. So that's the family that I was born into, and I would say being raised as a Romanian Baptist. And when I say this, I was raised in some small churches, church plants. My parents were church planters. When I was young, I guess probably all my life, they were doing church planting for the North American Mission Board, which was called the Home Mission Board at the time. So I grew up in basically a number of Romanian Baptist church plants. So they're small, and there's room for you to grow and for you to work and be active. So from that experience, I gained a very conservative theology, a thoroughly biblical theology, I would say. The way that the way that church services ran were that in the morning, Sunday morning, there was a prayer service for about, well, in Romania, like an hour, but in our church, it's a little shorter. So probably half an hour. A prayer service followed by whole church Sunday school, followed by worship service. And the reason I'm telling you that is because in these church plants, mentored by my father, I learned how to lead in various capacities in these programs. So the prayer service, that was relatively short. All that needed was for somebody to basically, like kind of call to prayer, read some part of a psalm maybe, and give a little bit of an exhortation from the psalm, and then let the people pray. And that was called the first, the first kneeling. So there was, supposed to be like 4, in Romania because they had a whole hour. But anyway, we just had, one for the men, and then we had a break and a song, a hymn, and then again, another psalm or something, and then the women and kids, youth prayed, whoever wanted to. Sometimes we'd actually just be kneeling, and sometimes we'd be standing. But I learned to kind of lead in a little service like that. That was doable. I mean, I was doing that. Don't be scared. I was doing that when I was like 15, 16. And yeah. Anyway, I'll make some other comments about that a bit later about me learning how to lead in a Baptist church. In the afternoons, there was always an evening program. And that had 2 parts. One was always a youth program, and that was about, 45 minutes, an hour. And then we had an evangelistic service. So, this is how every single Sunday was structured. So what that means is that every Sunday, youth was front and center in one of the services of the church. It wasn't just, like once a quarter is Youth Sunday and maybe the youth choir sings, but you don't really know exactly what's going on. Or maybe the youth praise band, kind of rocks out, and none of the old people are come in for that program. They just pray for the youth at home. But anyway, the youth involvement was really important. I also learned how to lead that service. So the youth service was really really interesting. And it was not exactly open mic. I'm not sure I could call it exactly open mic, but you had to sign up with whoever was leading that program that day. And if it was me, like Salvador would say, I got a song. I'm going to play my banjo, and then and then Noah would say, I'm going to recite a poem that I memorized. And then, like Liv would say, I've got a solo. And then, Mason would say, I'm going to, recite a passage of scripture text or something, or a psalm or something. And I would, write them all down and sort of arrange it so that it's like a, something spoken, something sung, something spoken. And then there's, instrumental stuff going on. And anyway, I gleaned actually a lot. I haven't ever been in any other kind of church that even came close to resembling the kind of, I guess, the kind of distribution of Sunday ministries and programming that you get at not just our Romanian Baptist Church, but Romanian Baptist churches in general. So you can count on the evening program being youth and then an evangelistic service. And I thought that was really important for our youth. There's always sort of like a youth program speaker, and I did that a lot too. And it was always like something from the book of Proverbs or something from, 1st or 2nd Timothy, don't let anybody despise your youth. We were just all such, we all waxed so eloquently there, exhorting one another not to let ourselves be taken advantage of and whatnot. And to live a moral life, and to engage in a moral ethic. And I mention these things because I don't really see this at a lot of churches, a lot of Baptist churches today. It's like the youth are sort of siloed off and hidden away. And I don't know if they're learning how to lead, in church as a whole, or even within their ministry, even if they have like a really large ministry. But this is a heritage, this is a legacy that I received, a gift that I received from the Romanian Baptist Church. And the irony of it is that they also are very conservative, just like, some SBCers, on women's roles in ministry. And yet, under my father, who was very conservative, very conservative, but it's almost like since I was the eldest child, maybe he was like lamenting he didn't have a son to carry on the ministry legacy. But anyway, I guess it was me. And my brothers did sports, and I didn't want to. So yeah, I learned how to do ministry, how to speak in church, how to read and interpret and share the scripture. And here I am today. Yeah.
Well, it's encouraging to hear just the rich legacy that you come from and the Baptist roots that you have, and we're thankful, speaking as one of the Baptist students, and how you provide leadership for the Baptist Student Fellowship and just represent the tradition very well. So we're thankful.
Thank you.
Thankful to have you. So speaking of your Baptist roots, one of the projects that you've been working on and a book that was just released is called Confessing Christ, an invitation to Baptist Dogmatics. So quick promo there. It's already available. You can already order it. But you and your husband co-wrote a chapter for this book. So I'd like to just speak to how you got involved with the project and what your chapter talks about. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I got my husband right here, just in case I fumble. It's my husband, John Laing. I guess when I was approached about this project, I thought I'm not the right person for this. And John and I had actually a lot of conversations on, what might this project be wanting to emphasize in terms of, like what they actually want from us, like to write. So my husband is a systematic theologian. He's taught systematic for 17, 18 years. At seminary, and I'm obviously a historical theologian and interested in church history. And this is a kind of a different kind of project, a certain kind of project that just kind of requires some nuancing, maybe, or maybe we just made it harder than it needed to be. But there's a group whose core, I would say, is at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary in Wake Forest, North Carolina. Actually, my husband did his MDiv there, as it happens. And those folks, along with, maybe if you've heard of the Center for Baptist Renewal, there's three main guys that are involved there. They're part of the project. We pulled in other Baptist theologians from New Orleans, from Southwestern, from Southern, I think. I think that's all that were represented. OBU. Oh, from OBU. Yeah. So we wanted to get together and think about. Let me get this right. It's a project that seeks to do theology in the service of the church, not as a systematic theology project, but set out in familiar terms that kind of look like a systematic. I mean, it's doctrines one after the other in the table of contents. But what we want to do is to look at Christian faith through a Baptist lens, and we wanted to draw out where Baptists fully participate in and subscribe to traditional, historic, Orthodox Christianity with a small O. And we wanted to connect this book to Baptist ecclesiology. We wanted to highlight Baptist distinctives like regenerate church membership, like believer's baptism, like personal conversion that is freely chosen. So the book is set out by doctrines. John and I wrote a chapter on soteriology. If I'm honest, John really was the main writer. I would say he's the lead writer, but we decided to set out the chapter on soteriology, so doctrine of salvation, kind of based around John 3:16. And so based in, I guess we kind of made it in 4 phrases. So based on each of these 4 phrases, we kind of set out various images and aspects of soteriology, the atonement theories, what we would know from systematic as atonement theories, all different ones that hearken to different aspects of this verse. So obviously the love of God, which is so important to me and to Athanasius, and and to Jesus and to John. And the apostle, both.
Not that it's not important to me.
Yeah. Redemption, belief, personal conversion, and then at the end, eschatology. So whoever believes might not perish but have everlasting life. So then, eschatology and the last thing. So we kind of did like this whole little systematic theology, not really, but dogmatic theology through John 3:16. So it's a verse near and dear to the hearts of Baptists. And as we set out the doctrines, we also wanted to highlight Baptist theologians. I mean, these were the instructions that we had. Baptist distinctives and then Baptist theologians. And so we highlighted Spurgeon on personal conversion, E.Y. Mullins and J.L. Dagg on salvation that's accomplished by the whole Trinity, not just the work of the Son, right? But a fully Trinitarian salvation. And then also, and really my husband's the lead on this part, we wanted to emphasize the work of the Holy Spirit in justification. Because usually the Holy Spirit is just, kind of discussed with respect to sanctification. And so we wanted to talk about the work of the Holy Spirit with respect to justification, his involvement in justification, and specifically, John picked out the image and the dynamics around the image of adoption. So, okay. Okay. And the last thing that we talked about, they asked us to sort of bring out a current, kind of a current concern, a current topic, some kind of current contribution of Baptists. And so we talked about Baptists and religious liberty and how the value that Baptists place on individual freedom to choose faith and in personal conversion and soul competency. This freedom translates in the secular realm or in the public square to an advocacy for religious freedom and for separation of church and state. And so we highlighted the works of Thomas Helwys and of Isaac Backus. And I knew who Thomas Helwys was, but just to be honest, because of this project, I kind of read a little bit about Isaac Backus. That was newer to me. And my husband has had a long-term interest in civil religion and issues of church and state and of religious freedom because of his work with the military chaplaincy. And so, I let him take the lead on that part too. And he wrote it and I put my name on it. just to be honest. Yeah, that's right. See, thank you for validating that. And I'll mention something that I was talking to Mason about before we started. After we had submitted our manuscripts and it went to the publisher, it was being edited and copy edited and all of that being finalized and whatnot. The editors, one of the editors, who's Keith Whitfield, he called me and he said, we'd like to make a dedication of this volume, and we'd like to dedicate it to your mother. Okay. Well, a little bit of very quick backstory is that the very first time that this Baptist group met in Wake Forest, they called it the Baptist Dogmatics Roundtable. And it just so happened that I wanted to take my mom to visit some family friends who were very ill in Richmond, Virginia. And I took my mom, we flew from Houston to North Carolina, checked into our lodging, rented a car the next day, drove to Richmond, saw our friends, and drove back. And then there were 2 days of meetings with the Baptist Dogmatics Roundtable. And my mom sat in the meetings. And every once in a while, she'd raise her hand, and I thought, what's gonna come out of there now? And but everybody loved her, and so the dedication here that they put goes like this: to Fulga Pascu Dan for her legacy, which embodies the convictions that have guided this project, and for her encouragement and support in this project when she joined us in June 2021 at the First Baptist Dogmatics Roundtable. So it's really nice. It's really nice. And then they said to me, listen, we don't just want to make a statement there. We want to really emphasize this dedication. Your mom is a Baptist woman. She's always been Baptist. She has spent her whole life working for Baptists in Baptist Church. My parents worked for the North American Mission Board, for the IMB, with Romanians, all the way through. And so they asked me to write her bio, and I thought I was going to maybe produce a concise page, and then it became longer. And I told them, look, I just need to be thorough, and then you guys just cut it down and make it a page. I'll leave that to you. Well, they left all of it, so it's the first 4 pages here. It's the first 4 pages, and that was probably the most fun that I had working on this volume, just to be honest. And these copies just came to us in the mail like a week ago, I think. And then over the weekend, I went to Tampa to see my brother for his birthday. Yeah, I got back just before the storm. But so I got this just in time to take this to my mom, who also went to Tampa for my brother's birthday. And so she got her copy in her hands and took it back home with her to Houston. And now she gave me to understand that she's going to show it to all her friends at the Y. Oh, Mom.
Sweet.
So anyway, her life really was incredible. And, like other saints that we read about, she didn't set out to be famous, popular, great, anything like that. Just in true humility, she would have never, ever thought that she would be accorded this kind of honor. I can't wait for other people to read it and say, the best part of the volume was the dedication. We'll see.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's amazing to see just the legacy that you are representing in your work here, and I think it's really sweet that the editors want to reach out and dedicate to her.
Yeah.
And, I'm excited to get to the book and to read her biography and know more of her story. And I encourage everyone, if you didn't get that title before, it's Confessing Christ, an invitation to Baptist Dogmatics. So I encourage you to order it and read it, and yeah. So
and enjoy it.
Yeah, there you go. So moving on from that, I want to talk about your work. It's exciting. Recently, you have been working as the general editor for Women's Study Bible, and I just want you to be able to speak more to what that looks like. What does it look like to be the general editor for a project as massive as that? I mean,
It is very massive. It's very massive. Yeah, everybody who I have talked to about it, like other academics, they just ask more and more questions to kind of suss out the scope of it. And when I kind of tell them how it's going and all the features that are going to be in it, they just sort of stand back and they look scared. And when then I feel, this sense of dread, like what am I doing? I try not to think about that aspect too much, but it is very massive. And the answer to how to do it, how to pursue it is just one day at a time. Honestly, there are days like this week I really haven't been able to work on it at all, but it's a project that is ongoing. We've finished a lot of manuscripts so far. We finished the Pentateuch and the Minor Prophets and most of the historical books. I mean, once the semester began, we were finishing 1 and 2 Samuel, 1 and 2 Kings, And right now, struggling, some of you know, I'm listening through Chronicles. We're struggling through Chronicles. We've done Ezra, Nehemiah. I wrote the notes for Ruth. I wrote the notes for Philemon in the New Testament. But basically, the way that this looks is that it was my job at the beginning to basically recruit and communicate with academic women, preferably with PhD, and all of them except for 2 have a PhD. Some of them, at the time that they were recruited, did not have a PhD. They were PhD candidates, and since then have finished. And so we assign out according to each person's area of expertise, as far as we can gather with what they've published or what they did their dissertation on or something like that, or what they like to speak about or lecture about. We kind of assigned out the books for them to write study notes on. So these are all academic women. They're, academic study notes, but hopefully not, obscurely academic study notes. Sometimes we have to pull things out like, the Samaritan Pentateuch. Like, well, okay, either we need to explain that or that just needs to come on out. And we can't have like Septuagint and Vulgate and Samaritan Pentateuch all in the same thing because, you think about what you knew before you came to seminary and what you didn't know and how that would strike you if you saw that in a study Bible at the bottom. So, I guess this is a dynamic that's constantly ongoing is what's coming in, what's in the manuscript, what needs to be edited and how, and what will the user's experience look like. So Jana, who studied library science, will know with me that there's a whole area of library science called user's experience, right? And so this is something that I've kind of gleaned from that education to think about how will this look in the end as the end product. How will the reader be seeing this? Okay, so. So we gathered the manuscripts, so they get submitted to me. They go into a Dropbox, and then a couple of copy editors go through them. I go through them and approve payments and things like that. And then we do developmental edits, and that is the really hard part. And developmental edits means maybe a particular topic is mentioned in one book, and then again in another book, and it's like, okay, there's a lot of repetition here. We need to be able to see what's in all the books together, and to be able to either connect things or to consolidate things or whatnot. Also, particular themes that have to be addressed, particularly themes of concern to women that come up in the text. We have to make, and this is a very nuanced kind of thing. We have to make decisions on where to place explanatory, let's say, focus boxes within the text so that it's not too much, again, for the reader. So, for example, I'll use Genesis as an example. In Genesis, there are so many stories about women. So the matriarchs, obviously, of the covenant. So where you have the story of let's say the abduction of Sarah, okay, or betrayal of Sarah, the abduction and rape of Dinah, the prostitution of Tamar, or let's say the rape of Tamar, other Tamar, by Amnon over in Kings. Obviously, you're going to have to treat the issue of rape, sexual assault, etc. But probably it's not best to put a focus box on that right there at the text because it's too much. So in the rape of Dinah, there's enough detail. There's enough detail to have robust notes. Most of the story is about the dishonor to the family. Right? Not so much is the focus on Dinah. You have to dig a little bit to sort of pull out the bits and pieces about Dinah to say exactly what happened to her. So that's probably not the place where you put a box on sexual assault. You put it someplace else. a call out on prostitution, probably don't put it in Hosea next to Gomer and all of that. Okay, don't put it there. So this is kind of a sensitive thing. It's certainly not my wheelhouse, and I'm not doing this alone. I have to mention that I have a co-writer / co-editor named Hannah Anderson, who is very active in like women's ministry on the speaking circuit for women's ministry. She also is a consultant for pastors who want to ask her questions about how to set up a good women's ministry in their church, and just to, what's the best way to address particular issues that pertain to women in their church or in the culture or whatnot. And Hannah is a real expert in that, extremely gifted and godly woman, and I can't imagine doing this project with anybody else except for Hannah. So pray for her, because she lives in Roanoke, Virginia. I think they're right in the storm right now. So basically, once we finish doing developmental edits, Hannah and I, then we clean it up. We clean up the manuscript and say basically, okay, we're kind of signing off on it. Then it goes to Lifeway, and it's sort of eyeballed by by somebody from Lifeway Women. So from that arm of Lifeway, because everybody in B&H reference and Bibles are male, and so which no problem, but we have to think again about the user. So the major user, our goal user, our end user, are women. And so after Hannah and I, who have been in the weeds and whatnot, have finished with it, and we're not just like dropping in, like parachuting into this text and that text that everybody knows, like, you got to do Gomer and Dinah and Sarah and Pharaoh and Sarah and Abimelech, like we want to, we need to do those things. No, it's like Hannah said to me one time, so we're just supposed to go into these parts, like those are the only parts for women, like the rest of the Bible is not for women. There are some themes that truly span the entire canon. You can't just drop in and treat this text and that text. You can't do that. And I told somebody on editorial staff that's impossible, because they're like, what? Like they want to know what's taking so long. What's taking so long? I told them the way, like your conception of how you're thinking that this is done, like kind of repurposed notes, add some feature boxes, and package it and put it out. No, this has started from scratch. So what's taking so long? That's taking so excellence, and like striving for excellence is what's taking so long. So the role of general editor continues on even after the textual notes are done and Lifeway Women have looked over it and kind of given it back to us. Then a project manager pulls everything together, and he puts in there a bunch of features that we've suggested. Some things we say to him, like, throw some word studies in there. Just the whole bank of word studies, throw some in that you think are appropriate. Other times we suggest particular ones, like we must have a word study of prophet right here, and we will edit it to include prophetess, so a prophetic office, So just as an example, or we might suggest a particular image or an illustration or something like some archaeological thing, or the Cyrus cylinder or something like that. Or we'll say, okay, a feature on the fall of Babylon needs to go right here in Daniel, between Daniel 6 and 7. It has to be planted right there. So some of those things we suggested, and the project manager kind of pulls it all together, and he puts it together so that all the features in order are sort of like one page each, and then all the textual notes of the manuscript flow out of that. And I look over all of those, and if there are captions that need to be done or research or something like that, I'll either do them if I know them, or I'll like outsource it a bit to one of the editors, say, hey, look up something and put a caption on this. One thing that I'd say we did very intentionally that I hope will carry on to other study Bibles is that on something as mundane as features like maps, because maps are in there for different reasons, maps, charts, outline, timeline. these are ancillary features, not the text itself, but there are things about them that are important to, I think, adjust. For example, when you have a timeline that is placing on there Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, when this person dies or that person dies, we're like, okay, Abram, and put Sarah in there as well. And where you have the birth of Isaac, you put Sarah bears Isaac. And then you have, Rebecca bears Jacob and Esau. And then you have Rachel bears, Benjamin and dies in childbirth. And you need to have the women's names in there, even in something like the timeline or the outline, because frequently those features are written just as if, Abram is bearing Isaac and he bears Jacob, and it's like, okay, there are wombs in there that are necessary. And that needs to be acknowledged. It needs to be acknowledged. Same thing with charts of like genealogies, family trees, things like that. On the maps, we've asked them to adjust some of the titles, the captions on the maps, instead of, see, like right now in the Holman Study Bible or the CSB, Abram's journey to Canaan. Like, no, Abraham and Sarah journey to Canaan, or when they have a map of where all the patriarchs are buried, they've got the burial place of Abram, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Like, okay, the women are buried there too, so put their name in there. And so, I feel like with all the discussion around being seen, this is something that I think is it's right in the text, it's right in the text. It's not being woke or capitulating to culture, cultural trends, or anything like that. I think it's righting a wrong. I mean, I could even say it's righting an injustice. So when people say, well, we're all the women of the Bible, right there, right in the text, the Holy Spirit put them right in there. And if you believe in, inerrancy to extend to every word of the text, look at every word. Look at those words too. I'll just say one more thing. A place where there are women hiding, that I'm sort of discovering, like to my own shame, really, just because I haven't really looked at it before. Because when you get into Kings, Chronicles, you're really looking at, even Samuel, you're looking at David's life and then the covenant with David as a fulfillment and related to the Mosaic covenant and the Abrahamic covenant. So you're looking at covenant, so patriarch, right? So you're looking at all those things, but when you look at Kings and Chronicles, it's really amazing how many times a king's mother's name will be given. And in Kings, it stands out, but in Chronicles, it really stands out. And I know, because as some of you know, I'm listening to Chronicles on my commute. And it's bunches and bunches of names, but whenever you have a new king, his mother's name is given. And I just think that's interesting, important. I don't have time to do a lot of research on that. I will, outsource, something on there. But it's just something to notice. The biblical writers put the names in there, and it's something to notice that we should notice. So, yeah. Anyway, so that was a lot, and I could go on for another half an hour on the study Bible, but we'll hopefully finish the manuscript like the beginning of November, and then it will continue to be edited, like each book's manuscript pulled together, like I said, with all the features, and I'll have to keep doing that, or be involved in that. But then it will hopefully go to print and come out, be released in about a year from now. So I'm kind of happy that in 2025, the anniversary of Nicaea, this study Bible is coming out. I'm pretty jazzed about it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing about your work on that. It's really interesting, just the unique perspective that you have as the general editor of a project as massive as that.
Yeah, it is.
Really appreciate just your thoughtfulness in explaining all that goes into leading a project like that. So I have several more questions, but I want to make sure we leave some time just for a Q&A. Any questions that y'all have about Dr. Laing's work and on the study Bible or Dogmatics. So I'll bring the microphone to you if you raise your hand, and then we'll go from there. So get over
So
here.
official.
Thank you, Dr. Laing. I have a kind of general question about your academic life, like hearing about the projects you mentioned today or projects where, like I'm thinking about you as a historical theologian, like a study Bible wouldn't necessarily be like maybe the project you would create for yourself necessarily. And so I'm curious about like the dynamic as an academic between like invited contributions versus maybe your own research, and maybe if you want to talk about projects you would love to work on kind of in your maybe main lane in those ways. I don't know if that makes sense. But.
Well, I would say that for this project that I wasn't looking for, I'm pretty amazed at how much a lot of what I mentioned to you about what I have gleaned from growing up in even in the Baptist church and in church work, in church ministry, by which I mean like teaching Sunday school. I've taught through the whole Bible. I mean, my husband and I co-taught a co-ed class at our church in Houston. We taught that for, I think, 9 years, almost 10 years. And in that time, we taught through virtually every book of the Bible. I think I've done every book except for 2. And so that was a great gift. I mean, so I don't have a preaching ministry, but I have that teaching ministry in the church. And I've seen a lot of research. I've seen a lot of interpretation and exegesis. And so now when I come to all of these manuscripts and I'm seeing, these academic women writing, and I mean, see, I think somebody like me, I won't presumptuously say me, but somebody like me is the right kind of person to do a Bible like this, a project like this, because the study notes are study notes and they're academic, and all the women contributing are my peers at other evangelical institutions, and they're varying denominations, but all are committed to inerrancy. So we vetted them like that. They're experts in, Old Testament, New Testament. I'm not a biblical studies person per se. I mean, I have New Testament as an area from my PhD. Coming to it from, I kind of feel like I'm a little bit of an outsider to biblical studies because I'm not an expert in biblical studies. But I look at it like there's a sense of familiarity, and then there's like, is that really right? And then I'll go in and look something up. And there are reasons for my approach that way, but I will just tell you that I have a pretty skeptical approach. I don't care if someone has PhD after their name, and you shouldn't care if I have it after my name either. You should care, is what's being said correct? Is it correct? If I have reason to think I'm not sure this is correct, I'll go look it up. Go and research it. And that's what I've done too. A project like this is multifaceted. It's not just the text notes, it's also art. And I have a huge, a lot of you guys know, I have a huge interest in art. I love to travel. I will be contributing some of my own photos, especially in the New Testament, about various churches, because I just went to Turkey last year and Greece. And art, artwork, that kind of expression, archaeological stuff, I want to bring that out a little bit apologetically too, because sometimes what's not in the scripture, so it's not proven in the text, like the name of Belshazzar, in Daniel 5, 6, I can't remember which one. But it's it's proven by archaeology. What's not proven in the text is proven by archaeology. And so I had the opportunity a few months ago to track down an online image of the Nabonidus Chronicle, the Nabonidus Chronicle, and just to look in there and see, that is one of 4 sources for the fall of Babylon, for what happened that night. And for now, I'm satisfied with all the different facets of this project. And in some sense, I don't have a whole lot of energy to think about like what else I might be pursuing. But I have been pretty consistently too, I think, involved in patristic spirituality and pursuing topics in patristic spirituality as I've presented at ETS or at the North American Patristic Society, the Canadian Patristic Society. So hagiography and martyrology and historiography, those are still going to be my big interests. And I think there's scope to kind of unite all of them in a pretty new series that's starting through Baylor University Press. So I'll probably be doing something, a volume with them. After I finish doing one more volume for the Baptist Dogmatics on soteriology. Yeah.
All right, well, let's say, I know we're getting a little closer to time, so if you need to leave, anyone has an obligation, you can feel free to head out. But I also want to offer, if there's any other questions that y'all have, to be able to ask that.
So as someone with history in patristics and church history, working on a Bible project, do you have any advice for someone who may be doing the reverse? Particular focus on Bible, who's interested in patristics?
I mean, in terms of what? Like in terms of what kind of scholarship you're interested in, or what kind of projects to pursue?
Scholarship, research, project to pursue, anything like that.
I don't have specific advice, but I will tell you that it seems to me like there's a trend right now towards integration of disciplines and an interest in cross-disciplinary work. So, for example, I see somebody like Lynn Cohick, who is a New Testament scholar. She produced a work, she co-wrote a book on women in the patristic world. So her interest extended into like women in the early church, women in the, first and second centuries, and then all of a sudden she came into my house. and I think it's, I think it's very, very fruitful to have the perspective of a biblical studies person, coming into kind of this other area. And, it's just as fruitful, I believe, going in this other direction, from my area and into biblical. And I'm not like intruding myself into biblical studies necessarily, but if you are the kind of person in biblical studies and interested in coming into this historical realm, I think that there's room to do that in all kinds of ways, and in different kinds of ways. So if you're writing, let's say, to an academic audience, you're going to be trying to do something that's more targeted, like how the church fathers interpreted scripture, particular texts and things like that. And I'm interested in how they interpreted particular texts. But if you're writing, let's say, for a lay audience, or like the people in your church, or an educated lay reader, then things can be much more holistically approached, and in a way that's more integrated. That it doesn't look like one area is encroaching on another area. So, whatever it's in your heart to do it.
All right, I think we have time for another question if anyone has it. Josiah.
That guy.
Dr. Laing, thank you very much. I was wondering who has been most influential to you in your academic career? If you could think of one person who's influenced you in your
just
academic
one?
career. Or, I mean, multiple is fine. That's, yeah.
Well, I would say I've taken a number of people as role models. Our doctoral supervisor, Craig Blazing, served kind of as a model and mentor for us for a time while we were doing our doctoral work, and then as an encourager after that. But I also have mentors kind of for different aspects of academic work. So Timothy George is is a mentor and a great example of like resilience in the academic life, and also excellence. To strive for excellence and to be precise, to be exact, not to overstep. Timothy and Craig Blazing. I think a lot of these women who are contributing to this study Bible right now, as I've become more acquainted with their works, I take them as role models in some respects, especially those who are kind of ahead of me, like Karen Jobes, who wrote for the study Bible on 1 Peter. Lynn Cohick also wrote for the study Bible on Philippians and 2 Corinthians. As I've become acquainted with them, I've also kind of looked to their work as well as exemplary. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
We all join me in thanking Dr. Laing for joining us today.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sure we all have several more questions we want to ask. I know we've run out of time now, but I think I can speak for Dr. Laing that she welcomes any questions you want to talk to her one-on-one at any point. She can talk more about it, and we're excited to read this book, for the study Bible to come out, and we're just thankful for all that she does to contribute to our life here at Beeson. So thank you all for joining us for this. We'll do another faculty spotlight next semester, so stay tuned for that.